It's not by chance that you're viewing this video. There's a reason you're here. Everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Trust the timing of your life and know that you're being led to where you're meant to be. As you stumble on this video, perhaps not by chance, it will serve to awaken your spirit. God Himself has orchestrated your arrival here because something sacred is shifting in your life. Today is not just another ordinary day, and these are not just empty words. Heaven has been observing you in silence, and now that silence is about to break. Everything you have endured was never meant as punishment. Rather, it was divine preparation. Every hardship you survived was not a coincidence, but a carefully designed test. And now that you have persevered and passed that test, not through perfection, but through unwavering faithfulness, your season of promotion is upon you. Elevation is coming. Recognition is on the horizon. God is preparing to raise you up, to honor you, and to reward you for your steadfastness. Before we delve into the 7 powerful chapters that will help you fully understand the divine season you are stepping into, I encourage you to engage with this message. Like, share, and subscribe. Not because it is content, but because it is confirmation. If you have walked through the fire, waited in the stillness, and endured the silence, let this word be your evidence that heaven has seen it all. You didn't merely survive, you proved your faith under pressure. And now God is preparing to elevate you publicly in response to your private obedience. To those who have continued to sow into this ministry through super thanks, may God bless you abundantly. Your faithfulness, consistency, and spiritual sensitivity are deeply felt and never taken for granted. You are part of something prophetic and pure, something that transcends the natural and touches the divine. If your spirit resonates with this message, if you feel the pull of destiny and the weight of heaven's confirmation, type 77 in the comments below. That number is not random. It is a prophetic signal, a declaration to the Most High that you are ready. Ready for the promotion, ready for the platform, ready for the reward that aligns with your obedience in the secret place. Not everyone will make it to the end of this message, but for those who do, there awaits a deep and transformative clarity. Clarity about why the waiting was so long, why the journey felt so difficult, and why the elevation that is coming next will be both undeniable and unshakable. This is far more than a mere message. It is a spiritual blueprint, a divine unfolding of purpose and timing. Let this word serve as a sacred reminder, a spiritual anchor to return to whenever your soul begins to waver or your spirit needs reassurance of what heaven has already decreed. You did not just endure, you overcame. You passed the test, and now the season of your rising has begun. Chapter 1. The test was never meant to destroy you. The test you endured was never intended to destroy you. Rather, it was designed to expose you, to uncover the depth of your character and the truth of who you are when everything familiar is stripped away. Chosen one, listen closely. What you experienced was not random, nor was it some cruel twist of fate. It was a divinely orchestrated process meant to refine and reveal, not to punish or break you. The betrayal you faced, the delays you endured, the financial hardships you struggled through, and the seasons of painful isolation were all part of a sacred unveiling, an intentional process of holy exposure. God already knew who you were. Heaven had already seen your strength, your heart, and your integrity. But you needed to see it for yourself, and so did those who are divinely connected to your destiny. That is why the test had to be public, so that your trials would be visible, but your growth remained silent, hidden from the spotlight. When the lights were off and no applause surrounded you, you still chose righteousness. You still forgave when it hurt. You still fasted when your flesh cried out. You still prayed when heaven seemed silent. And in those unseen moments of obedience and surrender, you passed the test, not through loud declarations, but through quiet faithfulness. When others folded under pressure, you stood firm. When others sought shortcuts to avoid discomfort, you remained committed to the process. Even when the enemy offered you an easier path, you chose the narrow road, the path of integrity, endurance, and faith. You didn't simply go through the test, you grew through it. You emerged from the fire not merely as a survivor, but as someone transformed, someone wiser, spiritually heavier, and more authentically aligned with your God-given identity. You shed false versions of yourself, no longer clinging to what once defined you, and instead stood tall in the name heaven had always spoken over your life. The fire didn't burn you, it branded you. And though you were allowed to walk through seasons that felt like loss, what you were truly losing was the version of yourself that could not carry the weight of the calling ahead. The heartbreak, the abandonment, and the long stretches of silence from heaven were never signs of rejection. They were divine revelations. God was showing you that you don't need applause to be anointed, that your validation doesn't come from recognition, and that a crowd is not required for your calling to be real. And now the test is complete. Heaven has seen enough. Your file has been reviewed in the courts of the divine, and the records are clear. In the midst of pressure, you did not panic. You prayed. When rebellion whispered to your weary soul, you chose to rest in God. When giving up seemed like the only option, you clung even tighter to the promise, and in that unwavering faithfulness, you were found approved. This, beloved, is your divine report card, and it reads with clarity and finality: approved, qualified, prepared, chosen. Understand this deeply. God is not raising you because of others' opinions or public perception. He is raising you because of what He witnessed in secret. He saw your resilience when hope felt distant. He saw your generosity when your resources were few. He saw your restraint when retaliation would have been justified. He saw your obedience in the hidden places where no one else was watching. That is what passed the test. This was never about destruction. It was always about divine exposure. And now that the truth of who you are has been fully revealed in the Spirit, the physical elevation is imminent. Heaven declares, "Well done. Get ready, chosen one. Your time of divine rising has come." No test, no delay, no lie of the enemy can block what God is about to release, because your identity is no longer hidden. It is confirmed. Chapter 2. Your character passed before your calling was released. Chosen one. Understand this eternal truth. In life, many individuals possess powerful gifts. Some speak with eloquence. Others lead with vision, create with brilliance, build with skill, or influence with ease. But God does not elevate people based solely on their talents. Divine promotion is anchored in character. That is why your journey took longer and your process felt heavier. The weight of your calling is not light, and it cannot rest upon a foundation that is unstable or unclean. God wasn't merely refining your gift. He was purifying your heart. He was stripping away the pride, the need for external validation, the toxic spirit of comparison, and the exhausting desire to prove yourself. He was peeling away every layer that would have polluted your purpose and distorted your assignment. The call upon your life is heavy, sacred, and significant, and heaven had to ensure you could carry it without it crushing your spirit or corrupting your soul. This test was never about your ability to perform in front of people. It was about whether you could be trusted when no one was watching. And that kind of trust is not developed in the spotlight, but in the secret place. Before God could release your calling publicly, He had to examine your integrity privately. Could you forgive those who never asked for forgiveness? Could you honor the very people who dishonored you? Could you give when your own cup felt empty and dry? Could you remain pure when compromise was easier and far more instantly rewarding? And could you stay faithful when it appeared as if your faith was failing? These were the hidden questions heaven was asking, not to shame you, but to shape you. And now, because you answered them with your actions, your heart has passed the test. Your character has been proven, and the calling that was once held back is now ready to be released. Chosen one, understand this. You didn't pass simply because you endured the trial. You passed because you endured it with integrity. While dirt was being thrown at your name, you chose to remain clean. When slander echoed around you, you stayed silent rather than retaliate. When fear, confusion, or exhaustion tempted you to run, you remained still. And when every voice in your mind whispered that it would be easier to quit, you stayed faithful. God saw all of it, and that is what shifted your season. Heaven is not searching for perfection, it is searching for purity. Purity is not about flawlessness, but about a surrendered heart, a teachable spirit, and a posture of humility that says, God, even if I don't understand, I still trust you. You see, many desire the stage, but few are willing to submit to the shaping. Many crave the mantle, but few are prepared to endure the crushing that precedes the oil. But you didn't run from the refining fire, you embraced it. You allowed God to break what needed to be broken, to heal the wounds you never dared to speak aloud, and to rearrange your inner world so completely that when external blessings arrive, they do not distract or destroy you. You allowed the deep work to be done in silence, where no applause was heard and no recognition was given. Only obedience, surrender, and sacred transformation. Chosen one, it is your character that has qualified you. And now that your internal world is aligned with heaven's will, now that your heart has been tested and proven in private, now that heaven has witnessed your ability to carry responsibility without needing recognition, the calling is being released. Doors are about to open. Doors your resume didn't qualify you for, but your integrity did. People are about to call on you, not because you're flashy or loud, but because you are faithful, steadfast, and trusted in heaven's courtroom. Opportunities are about to chase you down, not because of your status, but because of your surrender. You pass the test not through noise, but through quiet consistency, not by striving, but by surrendering. And now that which you have waited for in faith is being released, because God can finally trust your heart with the full weight of your divine purpose. Chapter 3. The silence wasn't God ignoring you. It was God watching you. Chosen one, the silence you endured was never evidence of God ignoring you. It was proof that He was watching you. If you have ever walked through a season where God felt distant, where the heavens seemed closed and answers were nowhere to be found, then you have already encountered one of the most sacred and revealing tests heaven can administer, the test of silence. Let's be honest, it isn't difficult to trust God when His voice is clear, when miracles flow freely, and when confirmation comes without delay. It's easy to walk by faith when every step is illuminated and every prayer is answered with signs and wonders. But what happens when the light fades, the words stop, and all you're left with is stillness? That is the place where God begins to take real measurements. Not when you are celebrated in public, but when you are isolated in private. Not when you are elevated in the eyes of others, but when you are hidden from view. In truth, the silence you experienced was not divine abandonment. It was divine observation. God was never absent. He was silently studying the posture of your heart. He wasn't speaking because He was examining your spiritual reflexes, your automatic responses, your true nature when there was no applause, no breakthrough, no clear evidence of progress. You were not forgotten. You were enrolled in a sacred exam, a spiritual testing ground, where the Father gently pulled back His voice just long enough to see what your soul would produce when it felt completely alone. And here's the beauty of it all. Even though you didn't know it was a test, you still responded with faith. You continued to fast. You kept on giving. You lifted your hands in praise even when it felt like no one was listening. You spoke life over situations that appeared lifeless. You remained loyal to an invisible God while walking through a very visible storm. That kind of response, rooted in faith, not feeling, speaks louder than any spiritual language. That kind of obedience resounds louder than the most powerful sermon. Because in those moments you weren't performing for people, you were proving your trust to heaven. While others gave up during their seasons of silence, you leaned in with reverent trust. While some sought shortcuts to escape the discomfort, you chose instead to suffer quietly rather than compromise your soul. Chosen one, in doing so, you showed God that He does not need to constantly prove Himself to you because you already know who He is. You demonstrated to heaven that your relationship with the Father is not built upon blessings, it is built upon covenant. Let this powerful truth sink deep into your spirit. Heaven does not promote based on noise, it promotes based on nature. And during that quiet, hidden season, your spiritual nature was fully on display. You were tested in the silence, and you passed. Now the silence is beginning to shift. The stillness is breaking. What once felt like an empty void is now vibrating with the sound of answered prayers. Because God is a just examiner, and every divine test must eventually be followed by a supernatural reward. You are about to witness doors opening right in front of the very people who assumed that God had left you behind. You are about to receive a reward that speaks not only to what you did, but to the purity of your intentions while you did it. For God does not merely evaluate action, He weighs the posture of the heart behind the action. They saw you quiet, but they didn't see the spiritual warfare raging behind your silence. They saw your patience, but they didn't hear the groanings of your spirit at 2 a.m. They saw your calm, but God saw the tears you wiped away so that no one else would worry. And now the same God who watched every unseen moment unfold in secret is preparing to raise you in public. You are not merely about to be blessed, you are about to be revealed. God is about to show the world why He kept you hidden, why He allowed you to sit in prolonged silence, and why He didn't permit you to move, even when everything in you screamed to run. This is not just elevation, it is divine unveiling. Chapter 4. You didn't fight back, and that's what qualified you. Chosen one, you had every earthly reason to retaliate. You were slandered, lied on, overlooked, misunderstood, and even betrayed by people for whom you would have gladly laid down your life. Some attacked your name, your work, and your heart, all without remorse. You were surrounded by injustice and armed with the full truth, yet you chose to remain silent. That silence was not weakness, it was wisdom. It was not passivity, it was warfare. It was not avoidance, it was spiritual maturity on full display. God saw every moment of restraint, the nights you bit your tongue until it bled, the days you held the receipts but chose peace over proving a point, the countless moments when your flesh rose in frustration but your spirit whispered, "Be still," and you obeyed. You allowed your tears to speak louder than your voice. You let the truth sit in silence and trusted that God would bring vindication, not on your timeline, but in His perfect timing. And that posture, that holy restraint, is what qualified you for what comes next. Anyone can fight back. Anyone can clap back. Anyone can cry out for justice and expose their pain for the world to see. But the chosen are trained in a higher discipline, one rooted in divine restraint and deep trust. It is a discipline that resists revenge and rests in righteousness. It is the kind that refuses to expose because it knows that God Himself will be the one who reveals. You didn't need to raise your voice because heaven was already writing your vindication. You didn't need to clear your name because God has already sealed your future. And now, because you chose stillness over strife, dignity over drama, and trust over retaliation, you are being positioned for a promotion that only heaven could orchestrate. You didn't fight the way the world fights. You didn't allow your emotions to dictate your decisions, nor did you seek to get even with those who wronged you. Instead, you let heaven balance the scales. And, chosen one, that kind of restraint is rare. In a world where everyone is shouting for attention, defending their names, and demanding to be heard, you chose silence, not out of fear, but out of faith. You understood that your calling is too weighty to be compromised by petty battles, and your crown is far too costly to risk over temporary emotions. So you stayed in position. You remained planted even as people tried to uproot you. You held your ground while false stories about you circulated. You didn't rush to defend yourself because you knew that God proves His people in His timing, not according to public opinion or pressure. And now that time has come. Heaven has rendered a divine decision. Because you didn't move, now God will. Because you kept quiet, God is about to speak on your behalf with undeniable clarity. Because you stayed low in humility, God is preparing to raise you up in power. Because you absorbed the injustice without retaliation, He will not only restore everything you lost, He will add more than you imagine. Do not forget the cross was the ultimate act of restraint. Jesus, though fully capable of calling down legions of angels, chose silence. Because His purpose was louder than His pain. And you, chosen one, followed that same example. You didn't react in anger. You responded with grace, with patience, and with faith. And that response is what qualified you. It wasn't merely your tears, your losses, or even your wisdom that moved heaven. It was your decision to let God be your defender, rather than defending yourself. This next move in your life, the promotion, the open door, the divine connection, is not just a blessing. It is a public confirmation of how you carried yourself in private. It will prove that your silence was not weakness. It was strategy. Your stillness was not passivity. It was obedience. And the battle you refused to fight in the flesh has now activated a reward in the spirit. So hold your head high, not in arrogance, but in divine alignment. Because the very people who thought they defeated you by tearing you down are about to witness God elevate you without you uttering a single word. You passed the test, and your silence was the answer that touched the heart of heaven. Chapters 5. What you lost was not a setback, but a divine setup for your raising. Chosen one, let us be honest. You did not merely lose things. You lost people you once believed were permanent fixtures in your life, opportunities that once excited your heart, and versions of yourself that were tightly bound to your identity. You did not simply experience a shift. You endured a stripping, and yes, it was painful. You wept when they walked away. You broke when doors closed without explanation, and you questioned everything when left with nothing. Yet heaven was not ignoring your pain. Rather, it was orchestrating every moment. The loss you mourned was, in truth, divine protection in disguise. The disconnection you felt was not punishment, it was preparation. The goodbyes you endured were not rejection, they were redirection. God was not just removing things from your life, He was lifting weight off your spirit. Some of those people you lost would have slowed your progress. Some of those connections you longed for would have corrupted your purpose. Some of the dreams you clung to were simply too small for the grand destiny God has prepared for you. He had to subtract in order to protect the multiplication. He had to disappoint you in the short term to deliver you in the long term. Because your next level is not casual, your calling is not common, and your destiny cannot be built upon everyone and everything you once started with. Therefore, He allowed it to fall apart, not to destroy you, but to set you free. Many of those relationships were never rooted in covenant, but were based on convenience. Some of those friendships existed only because you were broken and thus easier to control. Some of those opportunities would have drained your anointing and trapped you in cycles that appeared successful, but were actually suffocating. So God intervened quietly, swiftly, and decisively. And although it may have seemed like you were being diminished, you were actually being refined. Though it felt like abandonment, you were in reality being positioned for a divine appointment. Though it broke your heart, it safeguarded your legacy. Chosen one, you must see the bigger picture, for God is not sentimental about anything that threatens to sabotage your future. He does not negotiate with idols, nor entertain attachments that endanger your divine assignment, which is why He removed what you desperately tried to hold on to, why He shut the doors you kept knocking on, and why the harder you tried to fix things, the more they fell apart. Because God was actually saving you from dangers you could not perceive. While you thought it was a setback, He was setting the stage. And though you believed you were losing your foundation, He was quietly laying a new one, stronger, deeper, and unshakable. Now this next season is your season of raising, where God is lifting you up, promoting you, and elevating you into rooms, roles, and relationships that align perfectly with your true identity. Not the broken version of you, but the refined one. Yet this could only happen after you were emptied, after you experienced solitude, after you were pruned rather than punished. Because what is coming requires your hands to be free. Free from toxic attachments, free from dead weights, free from counterfeit callings. And now that you have let go, now that you have healed, now that you have surrendered, the new is ready for you. New strength, new connections, new opportunities, new vision, and most importantly, a new you. Chapter 6. You passed the test by staying true to yourself. Chosen one, for in a world that sought to twist, corrupt, and clone you, you remained faithful to who God created you to be. You did not sell your soul for status, nor compromise your values for validation. You refused to let wounds make you wicked or the spotlight render you shallow. Instead, you remained soft in a hard world, gentle when life became violent, kind in the face of cruelty, and pure when everything around you screamed for you to give in, and heaven saw it all. You did not clap back when they attacked, nor did you fake greatness just to be noticed. You did not build a brand but cultivated character, did not chase applause but pursued God's approval, and that is what made you pass the test. You were tested with offense but chose forgiveness, tested with platforms but chose purpose, tested with temptation but chose truth, and when blending in could have ensured survival, you stood out and stood firm, embodying the authentic, prayerful, unshakable, compassionate version of yourself. Not perfect, but pure. Not flawless, but faithful. Not loud, but powerful. And that is precisely what qualified you. God does not raise up those who merely mimic culture, but rather raises those who genuinely reflect his nature. He does not crown people based on image, but on integrity. And you, chosen one, have been faithful in the secret place when no one was clapping for you, when no one was reposting you, when no one saw your sacrifices. Yet you still showed up with love, obeyed even when it hurt, and carried peace like a weapon, which is why your name is now being whispered in rooms your feet have not yet entered, and why you are about to receive faith and favor that money cannot buy. For heaven is about to raise you because you did not allow hell to redefine you. Having passed the test by not changing, shrinking, hardening, or becoming who the enemy wanted you to be, refusing to betray yourself just to survive, lowering your standards just to be seen, or chasing trends instead of truth. Now God is about to raise the real you, not the polished, manufactured, or filtered version, but the one he formed in the secret place, the one who cried but did not quit, who walked alone but never walked away from him, making you the kind of vessel heaven can trust, not because you were loud, but because you were loyal. And here is what is coming next. God is about to highlight your humility, multiply your authenticity, and elevate your hiddenness into influence, not for your glory, but for his, placing you in spaces where your presence will convict, shift, and awaken others simply because you stayed true. While the world did not consider staying pure as power, God did, and while they failed to see value in your kindness and overlooked your simplicity, heaven recognized it as strength. So do not change now, because the reward is here, the lifting is near, and God is about to make a public example of what happens when a person refuses to conform and chooses to remain who he called them to be. And you, chosen one, have passed the test by simply staying you. Chapter 7. This next season is not merely about elevation, but about recognition. For chosen one, although you did not ask for a spotlight, heaven is about to shine one on you. Although you did not beg for favor, it is about to chase you down. And although you did not try to be seen, now it is your season to be recognized, having been faithful behind the curtain, loyal when no one clapped, and consistent when nothing changed. And now God declares that enough hiding is over, and he is ready to reveal what he placed inside you. For this next season is not only about open doors, but about divine exposure. Not about striving, but about stepping into rooms already prepared for you. Not about being louder, but about heaven announcing you without you saying a word. People are about to see what God whispered over you when no one else believed. They are about to witness the power that was concealed during your silent season. And the same ones who overlooked you will now look again. And this time they will see clearly, because this is the moment of recognition. Not recognition for applause, but recognition for assignment. Not fame for vanity, but favor for responsibility. Not elevation for ego, but elevation for impact. And you are about to be called on, chosen, and confirmed in the presence of those who questioned you, honored for how you served in silence, invited into places that require no resume but only obedience, celebrated for the weight you carried quietly, and raised up because you passed the test of being overlooked without growing bitter. This isn't just a promotion, it's prophetic fulfillment. And the recognition that is coming isn't random, but rather heaven's response to your endurance. For you did not manipulate your way forward, nor did you perform for attention. Instead, you waited, you trusted, you worshiped even when you didn't feel like it, and you built in private, which is why God is now about to reward you in public, allowing the anointing that was hidden to speak louder than words, causing the oil that was formed in your wilderness to mark you as royalty, and enabling the gifts you stewarded in secret to unlock platforms you never applied for. Because this is your reveal season, and you don't have to prove yourself. God already did that. Your character did that. Your consistency did that. And your surrender did that. As heaven is now mentioning your name in boardrooms, in meetings, and in divine conversations, where your name is being remembered by people you have forgotten, and you are being watched not for shame, but for selection, as your next opportunity will recognize who you truly are, not who you ever had to pretend to be. For you did not chase this, you did not manufacture it, you did not post your way into it. You simply obeyed, and that was enough. And now God is about to raise you, not so you can boast, but so you can build. Not to flaunt power, but to release purpose. Not to be served, but to serve at a higher level. To lead with love. To lift others as you were lifted. And to become the kind of vessel He can trust on a larger scale. Because chosen one, you are not just rising, you are being revealed. And you are not just entering a new level, but are being recognized by both heaven and earth as someone who carries divine weight. And if you're still hungry for more chapters to this journey, or a visual concept for a video or thumbnail, just say the word. I'm here and ready to help bring it all to life. Thanks for watching. Here ends this video. Take a moment to like, share, and subscribe if you find this video interesting.